So this is my map for November 11th, the day that I left San Francisco. And for my remote viewing colleagues, I'll leave it on the big map so you can zoom in for a moment. But of course, you can always pause and look more closely if you wish. Okay, so here we're showing data of flight. You can see pretty clearly in that floating being here that it looks very much like going up into the air. I did get an interesting break here in this, what looks like an ascension. I was worried when I did it. I thought, oh, is something going to be wrong with the plane? But it turns out I had forgotten to turn my phone off, and a text came in, and it cut off right there at a third of the way into the ascent. So I think that's what that broken line is referring to. So we get some data here about the kind of discomfort of flying. Some interesting data here about symbolized in this piece. See how it's hanging, and that for me is my symbol of something being carried along. And it describes it as both a structure and a being, and having some archival significance. I think that's my baggage. That seems to be from the description, my baggage going through the air. Here, taking off from San Francisco is so beautiful. For me, the green hills there, the green sort of humps in the line suggest all the beautiful area that you see. And then I didn't understand it at the time, but this kind of blue-green section here, I think is San Francisco Bay, because my data talks about driving around it. And I'm going to show you here some photos of that I took of going around the bay. That one in particular, I thought, oh, that's in my map. Yeah. So here, just kind of waiting. Here was an interesting, this symbol for me means some kind of potential danger. There was some really significant turbulence going into El Salvador. I think that might have, it's just kind of a fright on the unconscious. I think that's what it was registering. This piece is much more symbolic, kind of a cobra, that hot pink cobra, and you'll see the way I described it was that it was kissing the being, and I described it as being under a spell or enchanting, which I think is the unconscious way of saying, you're going under the spell of a new culture, and it's changing the way that your unconscious especially is reacting to what's around you. This was a highly symbolic drawing of Peru, I believe. I did some research once I arrived, and I'll show you. This was the symbol, and I thought, oh darn. Oh, no, I've messed up. Here it is. Okay. So I thought, what are all these birds? And so I looked up the bird symbol of Peru, and this is the national bird. And I think that shows some correlation with that drawing, and it shows a lot of correlation with some maps coming up. It shows up in different colors. So I think that was the unconscious way of acknowledging, oh, and this is a major symbol for Peru. So I think remember that you're blind to the target. You don't know what you're looking at, what day you're going to arrive. So I think this kind of sums up that experience of arriving in a new culture. This section, I often draw faces of people literally there. In this case, this seemed to be more representation of the country. I described this guy as being very skeptical. He reminds me of the immigration officer when I came in, although he wasn't dressed like that, but obviously that's symbolic of the culture. I think that's what that was about. This piece My remote viewing friends will have to help me. This seemed like, you know, the unconscious, these what seemed like a yin-yang symbol was the unconscious adapting, like some kind of seed starting to go around in at a beginning of a new way of thinking or a new way of being that I can't quite put my finger on right now. But I imagine during the course of the tour, that's going to become more clear about what's starting. There's some kind of process starting. The way I described this funny crab guy was picking things up. I think that's the baggage handling equipment. Yeah, it was funny the way that I described that and the way that I described what it was picking up. This is a symbol for me for aerial. I did say somewhere down here that it was an aerial, in the air movement. I can tell because there's a strong shadow underneath the object, and that's my symbol for some kind of aerial movement. Remember, you're blind to the target, so the fact that I got that was significant. And this was probably my saddest piece for the day, this military guy. When we got off the plane in El Salvador, it was pretty uneventful, but except for this whole line of prisoners being marched through the airport late at night and with men, guards who looked very much like this with machine guns going through the middle. They looked to me like Americans being taken through. I was imagining maybe to the prisons there. I'm not 100% sure that they're American, but I believe they were. So that was a sad experience. So overall, this was my first day. I arrived and get to bed till about 4:30 a.m. So I will shoot my next video about today's events on the 12th. Thanks for watching.